G'day everyone and welcome to the Global Wealth Club newsletter. Just got a quick video for you today on death taxes and how they relate to Australia and possibly what will happen with death taxes in Australia. So some history for you. It's not widely known that Australia actually had death taxes. They were first brought in around 1914 and they were abolished in 1979 under the Fraser government. They're normally brought in as a tax for the use of resources during your life. They're a tax on your estate for you being able to build up wealth using the resources provided to you by the state. Now, traditionally, it came about from the feudal colonies in the old world, and in Europe and so forth, where the lords and kings and queen owned everything, and they gave you the ability to create wealth or to create a living from that. Then they would tax your estate before it was handed down, and so on and so forth. In Australia, the superannuation that was introduced in 1992 by Keating was actually supposed to stop them coming in. So by getting rid of the other taxes as well, superannuation was supposedly brought in to stop death taxes coming back. But they will come again. And trust me, once governments know that there is a big bucket of money somewhere, don't get in between them and that bucket of money, because they'll come after it. So they'll look at taxing your super, they'll look at taxing your estate, and they'll look at taxing any other assets you got. So they will come again. And why will they come again? Well, governments are leaning socialist. We're just in that phase of cycle where more and more governments in the OECD nations are turning socialist. Australia is one of, I think, 4 nations in the OECD that don't have death taxes. Us, Canada, the Slovak Republic, and I can't remember, Mexico, are basically the only 4 countries in the developed world that don't have death duties. Everyone else does. The US, you get taxed at state and federal level. The UK, get it 40% in the UK. It can be reduced if you put it into charitable means, but most developed countries, well, all bar 4 developed countries, have death taxes. The Greens definitely want to introduce it. They're a socialist party. Labor think they're a good idea. Death taxes are part of their plan, even though they try to tell you they're not. So they will inevitably try to bring them in at some point in time. Now, the government that does bring them in will get smacked around for it at the ballot box, but an incoming Conservative government of it in its current form will not remove them. They will just see it as a big bucket of cash. The other supporting evidence why I think they'll come is there are so many government reports now, and the latest one that I found was the Ralph report in 2016 that states that governments will need to bring in death taxes to cover their spending gap. And that leads us to why governments want them. Governments want these taxes because it's an easy cash grab. It's a way to plug their falling tax revenues elsewhere. And the other thing is, it's a way to cover up their overspending. Politicians and that never ever think of reducing spending because they think in zero-sum games. Oh, if I take it from here, something else loses out, rather than the pie will grow. So they will grow. The other thing that they will use, and all the reports use this as the trailing reason why, is people aged over 65 is a growing percentage of our population. In 2015, 65 and over was 15%. In 2050, it's going to be 25%. Now, that's got a couple of problems for us. One, you think as people over 65 growing, the baby boomer population and so forth and so on, that would have a greater effect on the voting to lean it more not socialist. That's not the case, because the lower generations that are now tending to vote left are growing at 30%. So in 2015, they were about 15% of the population as well, but in 2050, they're going to be 37, 38% or more of the population. At the moment, as we see in today, 2020, the younger generations that are coming in to voting age at 18 is at 38%. So we've got a greater population that are coming in that are going to affect the lean towards and more socialist government. So governments will bring them in. They see it, as I said before, an easy cash grab, and then, never get in the road, as I said, between a government and a bag of cash. So what can you do? The easiest thing is be prepared. Understand from history why death taxes are around. Understand how the wealthy prepare well in advance. And I'm talking here well in advance, because if you are seeing close to your death, and this is what happens in some other countries, the government will still tax you if, for instance, within 2 years of your death, you transfer all your assets into a trust, or you try to minimize the effect of death taxes or inheritance taxes. They will still tax you because they'll deem it as an act of avoidance, not an act of minimization. The way to do it, and the way a lot of it, and the wealthiest lords and that in the UK, for instance, have everything in trust from the date someone is born. So they plan from the date that their heirs are born to make sure that the trusts and everything are in place, that the assets are transferred well and truly before anyone passes away. So that comes to get educated. Work out what is going to happen or what may happen. Work out the vehicles, trusts and foundations are your friend here, and other sort of entities around planning are your friends, and build your team. Here at Global Wealth Club, we're going to give you the education, and we're going to give you access to people to build your team so that you can become prepared and be prepared for a big change when it comes to death taxes. When will they come to Australia? No one really knows. I would say we would see them definitely sometime in the next decade. We already have a stealthy version of death taxes, and that's capital gains. And capital gains tends to really be triggered on someone's death, because it's a way of they getting you. But be prepared and look to the future. They are going to come, and they will come in a big way. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. Thank you. Bye.